I've thought about what I would say to her, the woman I was before all of this. I've thought about walking into that kitchen, taking the garment steamer from her hand, and telling her not to touch the black wool coat hanging over the back of the chair. I've thought about warning her that there was something inside the left pocket. A certified mail receipt, a folded letter, a name she had never heard spoken in her home, written in ink that looked almost exactly like hers. But I've decided I wouldn't say anything at all, because she needed to find out the way she found out. She needed the smell of hot wool and rain. She needed the hiss of steam against the sleeve. She needed the silence from the hallway when her husband stopped walking and realized she had gone quiet. She needed to hold that envelope between two fingers and understand, without fully understanding, that the person who had slept beside her for 18 years had used her name to close a door she did not even know existed. And I think, even now, she would have trusted him anyway. The following is a work of fiction. The woman I was then was named Clara Wren, though for most of her adult life she had been known as Mrs. Elliot Wren. That was how invitations came. That was how charity boards addressed her. That was how the doorman at their glass apartment tower spoke to her when Elliot was beside her, his hand warm at the center of her back. Mrs. Wren. She did not hate the name. That was important. She had built a peaceful life inside it. At 46, Clara lived in the kind of apartment that made other people lower their voices. High above Northbridge, the city moved beneath her in silver lines of rain and traffic. Their windows were floor to ceiling. Their floors were pale oak. Their kitchen was all white stone and quiet machines that clicked softly in the morning before the sun rose over the neighboring towers. Elliot liked order. Clara liked repair. That was the difference between them, though she would not have said it that way then. He was a family law attorney with a voice made for calming rich people who were about to lose things. Clara was a paper conservator at the Northbridge Civic Archive. She spent her days repairing water-damaged letters, flattening old photographs, lifting mold from diaries, and teaching ruined paper how to survive being touched. Every morning, before work, she lined up 3 things beside the door: her canvas archive bag, her keys, a small tin box of folded receipts. The tin box was absurd, and she knew it. She had kept receipts since she was 23. Grocery receipts, parking receipts, pharmacy receipts, coffee receipts from meetings where nothing important had happened. She folded them all into neat thirds and wrote the date on the back. Elliot used to tease her. "One day," he would say, kissing her temple, "the whole city will collapse, and Clara Wren will prove where everyone bought lunch." She smiled every time. Even when the joke grew old, she smiled. What he never knew, or what she believed he never knew, was that she kept proof because once, long ago, proof had been taken from her. She had learned young that memory alone did not save anyone. Paper did. Ink did. A signature could ruin a life. A missing one could bury it. That November evening, Clara was steaming Elliot's coat because the mayor's winter foundation dinner began at 8, and Elliot hated arriving anywhere with creased sleeves. Outside, rain tapped the windows with a patience that felt almost intimate. The city was a blur of headlights. In the kitchen, the garment steamer breathed out its white hiss. The air smelled of hot wool, damp pavement, and the faint bergamot of Elliot's cologne. Clara had a rule with clothing: check every pocket before heat. It was not suspicion, it was care. Coins left marks. Receipts bled ink. Keys damaged lining. She slid her hand into the right pocket first and found nothing but lint. In the inside breast pocket, she found a dinner mint wrapped in silver foil. In the left pocket, her fingers brushed paper. She pulled it out. The first thing she saw was not the name. It was the receipt. Certified mail. Northbridge Central Post. Delivered. Signature required. The second thing she saw was the address. Lila Orr, apartment 1407, Harborlight Residences. And the third thing she saw was the folded letter beneath it. Cream paper. Elliot's office stationery. Her name at the bottom. Clara Wren. Her handwriting. Almost. She stood there with steam rising between her and the windows while the words sharpened. Please stop contacting me. I have a life now. I am asking you to respect the family I chose. Clara did not scream. She did not cry. She did not call Elliot's name. The woman she was simply placed the letter on the counter, turned off the garment steamer, and smoothed the sleeve of his coat with her bare palm, even though the wool was hot enough to hurt. From the hallway, Elliot said, Clara. His voice carried the faint surprise of a man who had expected sound and heard none. She looked up. He stood under the recessed light, already dressed except for his coat. White shirt, dark tie, wedding band polished to a dull gold. His hair, once black, now silver at the temples in a way people called distinguished. He looked at the counter, then at her face, then at the paper. It lasted less than 1 second, the pause before he smiled. But Clara restored old documents for a living. She knew what a hesitation looked like when someone had tried to erase it. Did I leave something in there? He asked. His tone was gentle, almost amused. Clara picked up the certified mail receipt before he could reach for it. Who is Lila Orr? Elliot did not blink. That was the first thing she noticed. Not the answer, not the words, the stillness. Client adjacent, he said. Not my client exactly, a relative of one. Why? Why is there a letter to her signed by me? The rain filled the silence. Elliot stepped into the kitchen slowly, like one might approach a nervous animal. Clara, he said. There are names that can be doors, and there are names that can be cages. That night, mine became both. The woman I was still thought love meant letting someone explain. She still thought a marriage was a room where both people were safe enough to be misunderstood and then forgiven. So she waited. Elliot took the letter from her hand. He did not snatch it. He was never the kind of man who snatched. He was the kind of man who made taking look like helping. This is not what it looks like, he said. That is what people say when it is exactly what it looks like. For a moment, something tired crossed his face. Not guilt, not yet. Something older, a boyish flinch buried beneath expensive tailoring. You've been under stress, he said. There it was, the second detail. Clara had not told him she was under stress. She had been sleeping well, working well, eating well. She had even started taking the stairs at the archive because her doctor had said her blood pressure was better than it had been in years. But Elliot had a way of placing an invisible shawl over her shoulders. Fragile, tired, overthinking. He had done it so softly, so rarely, that she had mistaken it for concern. Don't do that, she said. Do what? Make my reaction the problem. The line surprised both of them. It came out quiet, flat. Elliot set the letter on the counter between them. She is someone from an old case, he said. She became fixated on our family after seeing your name connected to my work. I answered to end it. I should not have used your name. Why did you? Because she wouldn't listen to mine. That was reasonable. That was the danger of Elliot. His lies never arrived wearing masks. They arrived with coats, umbrellas, explanations, and the tired dignity of someone solving a problem for everyone else. How did she contact me? She didn't. Then why would she need to stop? His eyes moved once toward the window, down to the rain, back to her. We're late, he said. There are marriages where screaming would have been easier. Clara sometimes envied women who could throw glasses, slam doors, demand the truth with their whole bodies. She had been raised in a house where pain was handled like valuable china, wrapped, packed away, stored somewhere dark. So she folded the certified mail receipt into thirds. Once. Twice. Aligned the corners. Then she slid it into the pocket of her black evening clutch. Elliot watched the movement. For the first time that night, his calm changed shape. Clara, he said. and there was a warning inside the tenderness. Please don't turn this into something it is not. She looked at him. What is it? He did not answer. At the dinner, he was magnificent. That was one of the cruelest parts. He stood under chandeliers in the Northbridge Winter Hall and spoke about family reconciliation as if the word family had never cut anyone. He laughed with judges. He touched the elbow of a councilwoman whose divorce he had once made disappear from the papers. He introduced Clara as the reason he believed broken things could be restored. She taught me that, he told a table of donors. Nothing is too damaged to deserve patience. People turned toward her. They smiled. Clara smiled back. Under the white tablecloth, the folded receipt lay in her clutch like a live coal. Across the room, Elliot's law partner Celia Arden lifted a glass toward them. Celia had been their friend for 15 years. She was elegant in the cool, exact way of women who never seemed to spill coffee or choose the wrong lipstick. Her hair was the color of ash wood. Her black velvet dress made her look less like a guest and more like a verdict. When Elliot went to greet the mayor, Celia sat beside Clara. You look pale, she said. Clara almost laughed, not because it was funny, because the line had arrived too quickly. Do I? A little. Are you all right? It would have been easy to say yes. Clara's whole life had trained her for yes. Yes, I am fine. Yes, it does not hurt. Yes, I understand why you did that. Yes, I can carry this quietly. Instead, she opened her clutch, touched the edge of the receipt, and said, Have you ever heard the name Lila Orr? Celia's hand stopped halfway to her glass. Only halfway. Anyone else might have missed it. Clara did not. Celia completed the movement, drank, and set the glass down with care. No, she said. The word was perfect. Too perfect. What about Harborlight Residences? Celia turned toward the stage, where Elliot was now shaking hands beneath a banner that read, Families Forward Foundation. Clara, she said softly, if this is about one of Elliot's clients, you know he can't discuss it. Neither can I. I didn't ask about a client. No, Celia said. You asked about a woman. The lights dimmed for the next speech. Applause rose around them. Celia leaned close enough that Clara could smell her perfume, something green and expensive. Be careful, she whispered. Some doors don't lead where you think they will. Then she clapped with everyone else. That was the first confirmation, though Clara did not yet have the courage to call it that. On the ride home, Elliot held her hand in the back of the car. His thumb moved across her knuckles in the old rhythm. 3 times. Pause. 3 times. It was a habit from their early marriage, when they had been too poor for taxis and too proud to admit it. He would hold her hand on the train after long workdays and tap that rhythm when words were impossible. 3. Pause. 3. I am here. Back then, she believed him. That night, Clara let him do it. She even turned her hand palm up, so he would not suspect how far away she had already begun to move. The next morning, she woke before Elliot. Northbridge had gone silver overnight. Rain still clung to the windows. The apartment smelled faintly of coffee and the wool coat hanging in the hall. Elliot was sleeping on his side, one hand tucked under his cheek. Without his suit, without his careful voice. He looked younger, almost defenseless. Clara stood at the foot of the bed and hated herself for loving him in that moment. Then she went to the kitchen, opened the tin box of receipts, and placed the certified mail slip inside. She did not know it yet, but that small act was the beginning of her investigation. Not rage, not revenge, filing. At the archive, Clara worked in room B1 to a conservation lab with white tables, filtered light, and a silence broken only by the soft scrape of tools. That morning, she had been assigned a box of letters damaged in the old Fenwick Hotel flood. The paper had dried in warped waves, ink had feathered, several envelopes had fused shut. Her assistant, Jonah Pike, brought her tea at 10. Jonah was 27, all elbows and nervous kindness, with round glasses that slid down his nose whenever he concentrated. "You look like you murdered someone in your head," he said. Clara looked up. "Only archivally." "Respectfully, that's worse." She almost smiled. Jonah placed the tea beside her and glanced at the letter under her magnifying lamp. "Forgery intake?" he asked. "No, 19th century correspondence." "Looks like a signature comparison." Clara's hand stilled. She had not realized what she was doing. Beside the ruined hotel letter, she had placed a blank card from her desk and written her own name 10 times. Clara Wren, Clara Wren, Clara Wren. Then beneath it, she had copied the signature from the letter to Lila Orr. It was good, not perfect. The C in Clara curved too sharply. The W in Wren had the slight hesitation of someone drawing, not writing. But the pressure was right. The spacing was right. Whoever had signed it had practiced, or had access to something she had signed often. Jonah leaned closer. "That one isn't yours." Clara covered the page with her hand. He straightened immediately. "Sorry." "No, you're right." The room seemed colder after he left. At lunch, Clara walked 6 blocks through rain to Northbridge Central Post. The clerk at window 3 was a small woman with silver eyebrows and a cardigan buttoned wrong. Her nameplate read M. Bell. Clara slid the receipt under the glass. "I need to confirm who mailed this." M. Bell glanced at the paper. "Certified record. We can confirm delivery, not sender, unless you're law enforcement." "What if the letter was sent in my name?" "Then you should speak to law enforcement." The clerk's eyes lifted to Clara's face, and something in them softened. People think truth arrives dramatically. In my experience, it arrives through tired women behind counters who have seen enough human foolishness to recognize fear. Belle lowered her voice. "This was the one with the tall man," she said. Clara's mouth went dry. "What tall man?" "Gray at the temples. Nice coat. Came in near closing. Asked about signature confirmation. I remember because he kept checking the door." "Elliot. I don't know his name." "Was he alone?" The clerk looked behind Clara. No one was waiting. "There was a woman outside," she said. "Blonde. Not with him exactly, but he looked at her before he mailed it." "Celia." Clara felt the first clean cut of certainty. "What date?" M. Bell tapped the receipt. "Printed there." "Do you have surveillance?" "Not for customers, not that I can release." "Did he write the address here?" "No," M. Bell said. Envelope was already prepared, but he bought another certified label. "To whom?" The clerk's expression closed. "I can't tell you that." Clara nodded. She took the receipt back. Her fingers were steady. At the door, M. Bell called after her. "Ma'am?" Clara turned. The clerk hesitated, then said, "He paid cash. People who mail boring things don't usually pay cash." Outside, rain hit Clara's face like cold pins. She stood beneath the post office awning and watched buses move past in gray sheets of spray. Her phone buzzed. Elliot. She let it ring. A message appeared. "Thinking of you. Dinner at home tonight. I want us to talk. Calmly." Calmly. Clara stared at the word until it stopped looking like language. Then another message came. "Please don't go looking for pain that is already over." Her thumb hovered above the screen. She wrote, "What pain?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then nothing. By 5, Clara had done 3 things she had never done before. She called in sick for the next day. She used a personal search database at the archive, not for a patron, but for herself. And she opened the old locked drawer beneath her work table, where she kept the things she had never been able to restore. Inside was a lavender ribbon, a hospital bracelet with no child attached to it, and a photograph of herself at 18, standing outside a brick building called Roseward House. one hand over a belly that no one in her family had ever mentioned again. Clara did not take the photograph out. She simply looked at it until the edges blurred. Then she closed the drawer. When Clara was 18, she disappeared from school for 6 months. That was what people said. Disappeared. As if she had walked into fog by choice. In truth, her mother drove her 3 towns away to Rosewood House, a home for girls who had made mistakes. That was the phrase used then. Mistakes. As if a girl could become pregnant alone. As if shame were proof of consent. As if silence were medicine. Clara was told that the baby had not survived. She was told it gently by a nurse with red hands in lavender soap. Her mother held her shoulders and said, "This is God's mercy. You can still have a life." So Clara had a life. She finished school. She moved to Northbridge. She became excellent at repairing paper because paper, unlike people, did not ask why you trembled when someone said the word daughter. She told Elliot about Rosewood before they married. Not everything. Enough. He cried when she told him. He held her on the floor of their first apartment, the radiator banging in the wall, and said, "No one will ever make you carry something alone again." For years, that sentence was a room Clara returned to whenever life became hard. Now it sounded like a key turning from the outside. That evening, Elliot cooked. He was not good at cooking, which made the effort more painful. Tomato soup from scratch, grilled cheese cut into triangles, rain against the windows, jazz low in the living room. A softer woman might have mistaken it for apology. Clara sat at the kitchen island and watched him stir the pot. "You went to the post office," he said without turning. Not a question. "Yes?" The spoon paused. "That was unnecessary." Was it? He turned off the burner. The kitchen fell into a silence so complete Clara could hear the elevator hum beyond the walls. "Who is she?" Clara asked. Elliot wiped his hands on a towel. "Someone who could hurt you." "That is not an answer." "It is the only answer that matters." She laughed once, quietly. He flinched. "Clara, listen to me." He came around the island but stopped before touching her. He knew her too well, knew when touch would feel like pressure. "You have spent your whole life surviving things that should never have happened to you. I know that. I honor that." "No." His brow tightened. "You do not get to honor a wound while hiding a knife in it." His face changed then, only slightly, but the kind man thinned, and beneath him was someone frightened enough to be dangerous. "She contacted me first," he said. The room tilted. "When?" "A year ago." Clara gripped the edge of the island. "A year. She claimed things, about Rosewood, about you. I looked into it because I didn't want some unstable woman coming into our life and reopening old trauma. Our life. Yes, our life. Mine first." He looked away. That was the moment Clara knew. Not everything. Enough. "She is mine," Clara said. Elliot closed his eyes. The rain tapped the glass. When he opened them again, his expression held so much sorrow that, for one wild second, Clara almost comforted him. Almost. "She believes she is," he said. The cruelty of that sentence did not arrive at once. It unfolded. She believes. As if motherhood were a delusion. As if Clara's body had not once torn itself open in a white room while lavender soap filled the air. As if a girl had not been told to mourn quickly and quietly so the adults could be spared discomfort. What does that mean? It means records from places like Rosewood were sloppy. It means adoption files were sealed and altered and sold. It means people build fantasies around missing pieces. "Did you see proof?" He did not answer. "Did you see proof, Elliot?" His jaw tightened. "I saw enough to know that no good would come from it." No good for whom? He stepped back as if she had struck him. That was his gift, making your question look like violence. "I protected you," he said. Clara stood. "No, you intercepted her. She was not entitled to you. Neither were you." He stared at her, The soup began to skin over in the pot. Then, very softly, he said, "You are not thinking clearly." There it was again. Fragile. Tired. Unstable. He had not raised his voice. He did not need to. He had other tools. "Tomorrow," he said, "we are going to call Dr. Venn. Together." Dr. Venn was Clara's old grief counselor. She had not seen him in 9 years. "No. Clara. No. If you spiral into this, I cannot just stand by." "You stood by for a year." The words landed. For the first time, Elliot had no gentle answer ready. Clara walked to the hall closet, took her raincoat, and left before he could decide whether to stop her. The first person she called was her younger sister May, not because May was brave, because May knew the old story. May lived across the river in a narrow townhouse full of plants, mismatched mugs, and photographs of children Clara had loved like a second mother. May answered the door in wool socks, her hair twisted up with a pencil, her face open with concern. Then she saw Clara's expression, and the concern became something else. Dread. "You know," Clara said. May's hand slipped from the doorframe. Behind her, the house smelled of cinnamon tea and old wood. A lamp burned in the front room. Somewhere upstairs, a teenager laughed at a video. "Come in," May whispered. "No, answer me here." "Clara, it's raining." "I have been wet before." May looked past her into the street, as if expecting Elliot to appear. That glance told Clara more than a confession would have. "Elliot called you," Clara said. May's eyes filled. "When?" "Please, come inside." "When, May?" Her sister hugged herself. "Last winter." Clara felt the cold move beneath her skin. "He said someone had contacted him," May continued. "He said she was claiming to be the baby. I told him that was impossible." "Why?" May began to cry. "Because Mom said so." "Mom lied." "We don't know that." "Did Elliot know?" May pressed a hand to her mouth. Clara stepped closer. Rain dripped from her coat onto the threshold. "Did he know?" "He showed me copies," May said. "A birth registration, a transfer form, a name." The world narrowed to the porch light, the wet steps, her sister's face. "What name?" May shook her head. "I can't." "You can't?" "He made me promise." Clara laughed then, not loudly, not happily. It came out like something breaking underwater. "My husband and my sister made promises about my child." May flinched. "Clara, you were so young. You almost died. Mom was wrong, but she thought she was saving you. Elliot thought." "Do not finish that sentence." May wiped her cheeks. "He thought if you knew, it would destroy you." "No," Clara said. "He thought if I knew, I might become someone he could not manage." That was the first time she said it plainly. Manage. The word frightened her because it fit too well. May reached for her. Clara stepped back. "You have one chance," she said. "Give me the name." "I don't have it." "May." "I swear, Elliot didn't leave the copies. He showed me on his phone. I only remember the last name." Clara waited. "Orr," May whispered. The rain seemed to stop making sound. "Lila Orr," Clara said. May closed her eyes. The trust twist was not that May had hidden everything. It was that she had hidden just enough to keep loving herself. People imagine betrayal as a single locked room. More often, it is a hallway of doors people leave half open, telling themselves they never truly went inside. Clara went home because she had nowhere else to go. Elliot was not there. On the kitchen counter, the soup had been poured into 2 bowls and covered with plates. Beside hers was a note. "I am staying at the office tonight. We both need rest. Please do not contact this woman until we can speak with someone qualified. Someone qualified. Clara read the note twice. Then she walked into Elliot's study. It was the one room in the apartment that did not belong to both of them. Dark shelves, locked file cabinets, leather chair. A framed photograph of Elliot at 10 years old, standing beside a woman Clara had never met. His mother. She had left when he was 11. He rarely spoke of her. When he did, he used clean phrases. She was not suited for motherhood. She needed a life elsewhere. She made her choice. On his desk was a silver tray for keys, a brass lamp, and a leather blotter so polished it reflected the light. Clara had dusted that desk for years without opening a drawer. That night, she opened all of them. The top drawer held pens, stamps, business cards. The second held envelopes. The third was locked. Clara stood there for a moment, listening to the apartment breathe. Then she went to her own work bag and removed the small steel microspatula she used for separating damp paper. It took less than 2 minutes. That knowledge disturbed her more than the act. Inside the locked drawer was a file folder labeled Harbor Light. No client number, no law firm sticker, just Elliot's handwriting. Inside were printed emails, bank transfer confirmations, a copy of Lila Orr's driver's license, and a photograph. Clara touched the edge of the photograph and stopped breathing. The young woman in the picture stood outside a building with blue awnings, laughing at someone beyond the frame. She was perhaps 27, dark red hair cut to her chin, strong mouth, small scar through one eyebrow, but the hands. Clara knew those hands. Long fingers, narrow palms, a slight curve to the little finger on the right. Her hands. On the back of the photograph, Elliot had written 2 words. Do not. Clara sat in his chair. For a while, she did not move. Then she began to read. Lila Orr had first written to Clara through the archive, not to Elliot. Dear Ms. Wren, my name is Lila Orr. I know this will sound impossible, and I apologize if it causes distress. I was born at Rosewood House on February 3rd, 28 years ago. My adoption file lists my birth mother's name as Clara Ellery. I believe that may be you. Clara Ellery, her maiden name. The email went on. It was careful. Too careful. The writing of someone trying not to want too much. I am not asking for anything. I would simply like to know if you are willing to exchange medical history. And perhaps, if you are comfortable, a letter. A letter? Clara pressed her fist against her mouth. The next printed email was from Elliot, not from his account, from hers. Lila, I am not interested in contact. My life moved on. Please respect my privacy. Clara looked at the timestamp. February 5th, 2 days after the first email. There were more. Lila apologizing. Elliot, as Clara, becoming colder. Lila asking if she had done something wrong. Elliot, as Clara, writing. You were not part of my life then, and you cannot be part of it now. Clara made no sound, not because the pain was small, because it was too large to fit through the body all at once. At the bottom of the folder was a bank statement. Monthly transfers. $1,000, then 2, then 5. Paid to Lila Orr. Memo lines blank. One transfer had failed. Beside it, Elliot had written, She is not going away. Beneath that was a sticky note in Celia's handwriting. If this becomes public, frame as extortion first. Clara stared at the note until the letters blurred. Extortion. A daughter asking for a letter had been turned into a threat. That was the depth twist. The betrayal was not a single lie. It was a system. Elliot had built it inside their marriage, using her grief as a locked door and her trust as the key. At 2 a.m, Clara photographed every document. At 3, she returned the folder exactly as she had found it. At 4, she sat on the floor of the bathroom with her back against the tub and called the number at the bottom of Lila's first email. It rang 5 times. Then a voice answered, hoarse with sleep. "Hello?" Clara could not speak. "Hello?" The voice changed, alert now. "Who is this?" Clara closed her eyes. The bathroom smelled faintly of eucalyptus soap and cold tile. Her hand shook around the phone. "My name is Clara Wren." Silence. Then a small sound. Not a gasp, not a sob. A breath being held too long and finally released. Lila said, "No, it isn't." The words pierced Clara more deeply than if Lila had cursed her. "It is," Clara whispered. "No, she doesn't call. She emails through lawyers. She sends money when she feels guilty. She tells me to stop." "I didn't know." Lila was quiet. Clara could hear traffic on the other end, a siren far away. The intimate emptiness of another apartment at night. Then Lila said, "Prove it." "How?" "Tell me something he wouldn't know." Clara looked at herself in the dark bathroom mirror. She saw a middle-aged woman with wet eyes, gray at her temples, one hand pressed to the place where a baby had once moved beneath her ribs. "When I was at Roseward," she said slowly, "there was a nurse who smelled like lavender soap. She told me not to name you. She said names make ghosts heavier." The silence changed. Lila whispered, "I hate lavender." Clara's breath broke. "Me too." They met the next morning in a cafe beneath Harborlight Residences. Clara arrived 40 minutes early. She chose a table in the back, but not the corner. She did not want Lila to feel trapped. She ordered coffee and did not drink it. She folded the receipt into thirds before realizing what she had done. Then Lila walked in. There are moments when the body knows before the mind can protect itself. Clara stood too quickly. Her chair scraped the floor. A man near the window glanced over. Lila stopped just inside the door. In photographs, resemblance is evidence. In person, it is violence. Not because it hurts you, because it removes denial. Lila had Clara's hands, yes, but also her father's eyes. Whoever he had been, hazel with a gold center. She wore a navy coat, boots wet from rain, and a gray scarf wrapped twice around her throat. In one hand she carried a folder. Neither of them moved. Then Lila said, "You look smaller than I thought." Clara almost smiled. "You look angrier than I hoped." "I am." "Good." That surprised Lila. Clara touched the back of the chair. "Please," she said, "sit if you want to. Leave if you need to." Lila sat. For a minute, they only looked at each other. The cafe machines hissed, cups clinked. A child at another table complained about hot chocolate being too hot. Finally, Lila opened the folder and slid 3 pages across the table. "These are the emails," she said. "I saw copies." "From him?" "Yes." "Then you saw the polite ones." Clara looked down. The first page was not an email. It was a letter, handwritten. "Dear Lila, I carried you for 7 months and buried you for 27 years. I do not know how to speak to the living version of someone I mourned, but I want to try." Clara touched the page. The handwriting was Elliot's imitation of hers, but softer, kinder. He had written as her, not just rejection, comfort too. "He sent you this." Lila nodded. "After the first money transfer, I thought maybe you were scared. I thought maybe he was helping you find a way to talk." Clara read the last line. "Please be patient with me. I have always loved you in the only way I was allowed." For one dangerous second, she understood why Lila had believed. The letter sounded like the mother Clara might have been if someone had given her courage. Then Lila slid the second page over. This one was colder. "I regret sending my previous letter. It was a mistake. My husband and I agree that continued contact is unhealthy for everyone involved." "My husband and I," Lila said. That phrase appears in 4 letters. Clara closed her eyes. Lila watched her. You really didn't know? No. I wanted to hate you. I know. No, Lila said, her voice sharpened. You don't, because hating you gave me somewhere to put it. If you didn't do this, then I spent a year begging a locked door while the person behind it wasn't even home. Clara absorbed that. She did not defend herself. Silence, for once, was not weakness. It was room. Lila looked away first. He told me you were fragile, she said. Clara laughed softly. Of course he did. He said Roseward nearly killed you. He said finding me would make you relive it. Did he say why he got to decide? Lila looked back. No. What else did he say? Lila's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. He said you had chosen peace. He said I had no right to take it. That was Elliot's voice, so reasonable, so devastating. I need to ask you something, Clara said. Lila's face closed. I don't want money. I know. I never ask for money. I know. I cashed the checks because I was furious. I would have cashed more. That startled a laugh out of Lila. It vanished quickly, but it had existed. Clara leaned forward. Why did you keep contacting him after the letters? Lila reached into the folder and removed a small photograph. It was Elliot, standing outside Harbor Light's lobby in the rain. He was looking down at his phone. Behind him, reflected in the glass, was Lila taking the picture. He came to my building, she said. Not once, often. Clara stared. He didn't just write. No, he said written things could be misunderstood. A bitter little smile crossed Lila's mouth. He liked to say that while handing the envelopes. What was in them? Cash, sometimes articles about sealed adoption trauma. Once, a list of therapists. Clara's stomach turned. Did he threaten you? Not at first. And later? Lila looked toward the window. Later, he said if I kept pushing, people would ask why a woman with debts and no family was targeting a respected attorney's wife. Clara went cold. He said that? Not angrily, almost kindly, like he was warning me about weather. That was Elliot. His dangerous lines always wore gloves. Before they parted, Lila gave Clara one more thing, a small cream envelope. Inside was a copy of her original adoption intake. Birth Mother Clara Ellery, infant female. Live birth. Transfer authorized by guardian. Guardian's signature, Margaret Ellery. Clara's mother. The room seemed to move, Lila said. I'm sorry. Clara looked at her. You have nothing to apologize for. My existence hurt you. No, Clara said. And for the first time since finding the receipt, her voice became solid. Their lies did. When Clara returned home, Elliot was waiting. He sat in the living room with his coat still on, rain darkening the shoulders. Celia stood by the windows, arms folded. On the coffee table lay a folder Clara recognized immediately. Harbor Light. The drawer in Elliot's study had been checked. That was when the first false ending began. Elliot looked exhausted. Celia looked prepared. Where were you? Elliot asked. Clara set her wet umbrella in the stand. You know. His face tightened. Celia spoke first. Clara, before anything else is said, I need you to understand that Elliot may have mishandled this, but he did so under extraordinary emotional pressure. Clara laughed. Celia did not like that. This is not amusing. No, Clara said. It is very serious. My husband impersonated me to reject my child. Elliot stood. Do not call her that yet. The room went silent. Even Celia glanced at him. Clara looked at the man she had loved for 18 years and saw, not a stranger, but something worse. A familiar person finally visible. Yet, she said. Elliot's mouth tightened. I mean legally, emotionally, carefully. Clara, you met her once. And you lied to her for a year. I kept a dangerous situation contained. She asked for medical history. She asked for you. Yes, his control broke just enough for anger to show. You think those are different? There it was, the wound beneath the strategy. Clara heard it then, though she did not yet understand it, to Elliot. Being asked for was never innocent. Need was a mouth that swallowed you. Love was a room someone could leave. Celia stepped forward. Clara, this conversation needs structure. Elliot has consulted Dr. Venn, and given your history with Roseward, he agrees that direct contact should be mediated. Clara turned slowly. You called my former therapist, Elliot said. I called someone who knows what you survived. No, Clara said. You called someone whose authority could be useful. Celia's voice cooled. That is unfair. I am not trying to be fair. Elliot looked pained. You see, this is what I was afraid of. Clara felt the old trap close around her. If she was calm, he was reasonable. If she was angry, she was unstable. If she cried, she was fragile. If she investigated, she was obsessive. There was no door in the room that did not lead back to his version of her. Celia placed a document on the table. Given the circumstances, Elliot is prepared to stay elsewhere temporarily. We also think it would be wise for you to take medical leave from the archive. Clara stared. Medical leave? For your privacy, Elliot said. Whose idea was that? Neither answered. Clara walked to the coffee table and picked up the document. It was not official, not yet. A draft letter to the archive director. To whom it may concern, due to acute emotional distress following resurfaced trauma, Clara Wren will be stepping back from conservation responsibilities involving sensitive family records. Sensitive family records. They were not only trying to manage her at home, they were building a record outside it. Clara folded the paper once, twice. She looked at Elliot. How long have you been preparing this? Celia said. No one is attacking you. Clara kept her eyes on her husband. How long? Elliot's jaw worked. Since you started acting unlike yourself. When was that? He said nothing. Clara understood. Since she found out. That was how quickly a woman could become unlike herself to the people who preferred her uninformed. Elliot reached for her. She stepped back. Clara, please, I am begging you, do not let a stranger undo us. A stranger. The word went through her like glass. She looked at him and saw the boy in the framed photograph on his desk, the child whose mother had left, the man who had built a life around never being abandoned again. And she saw, with terrible clarity, that his fear had made him cruel. You undid us, she said. Elliot's eyes filled. For 1 second, he looked as if he might tell the truth. Then Celia touched his arm. The moment closed. That night, Clara did not sleep. She packed 1 suitcase, not much, clothes, the tin of receipts, the lavender ribbon she had not touched in years, the photograph from Roseward. At dawn, she left the apartment while Elliot slept in the guest room and checked into a small hotel near the archive. The room smelled of bleach and old carpet. The window faced a brick wall. The heater clicked all night like teeth. Clara sat on the bed and understood that she had lost the beautiful apartment, at least for now. She had lost her sister's innocence. She had lost the story of her mother as stern but loving. She had lost the marriage she thought she was inside. But loss, she was beginning to learn, was not the same as defeat. At 9, she called Jonah. I need help, she said. He was silent for 1 second. Then, to his credit, he only asked, legal, criminal, emotional, or archival? Archival. Thank God, that's the only one I'm licensed for. By noon, Jonah had helped Clara request access to the closed municipal records connected to Roseward House. He did not ask why, He simply filed the request under historical identity verification and marked it urgent. At 2, Clara contacted an attorney named Amara Sloan, a quiet woman with silver braids who had once donated a collection of civil rights letters to the archive. At 4, Clara met Lila again. This time, they sat in a public library, not a cafe. There was something easier about sitting beside each other instead of across. Lila brought a laptop. Clara brought copies of Elliot's documents. They spread them on a table beneath a green-shaded lamp. Lila clicked through scanned letters. He used different tones, she said. Sometimes warm, sometimes cold, like he was training me. Clara looked at the dates. He responded warmly when you pulled away, and cruelly when I asked to meet. He was managing hope. Lila stared at the screen. That's a disgusting sentence. Yes. Clara showed her the draft medical leave letter. Lila's expression hardened. He was going to do that to you too. Yes. Why? Clara looked across the library. A man was helping a child sound out a sentence. Outside, rain slid down the tall windows. Because if he could make me fragile, he could make himself necessary. Lila closed the laptop. I recorded him once. Clara turned. When? 2 months ago. He came to the lobby. I thought maybe if I played it back, I could understand what was real. Do you still have it? Lila nodded. Her hand hovered over her phone. Before I play it, I need to say something. Clara waited. I am not looking for a mother like in a movie. I know. I don't want Thanksgiving and tears and some magical thing where all the missing years become meaningful. I know. I just want the truth to stop moving. Clara felt that sentence enter her and stay. The truth to stop moving. Me too, she said. Lila played the recording. At first there was lobby noise, elevator chime, rain, Elliot's voice, low and close. You have to stop forcing this. Lila's voice, shaking. I sent one letter, then another, then emails, then calls. Because the answers sounded like different people. A pause. Then Elliot said, She is not capable of being what you want. You don't know what I want. I know what wanting does. His voice changed on that line. Clara leaned closer. The recording crackled as if Lila had moved the phone in her pocket. You think this is about identity? Elliot said. It isn't. It is about hunger. You were abandoned, and you think if you find the right person, that feeling will end. Lila said. Was that true for you? A long silence. Then Elliot, almost too softly to hear, my mother packed a blue suitcase while I was at school. For 2 years, I thought if I behaved well enough, she would come back for Christmas. Clara stopped breathing. Lila said nothing. Elliot continued. When someone leaves you once, you learn something useful. You learn that love is a temporary arrangement other people can revise. His voice hardened again. I will not let you walk into Clara's life and make her revise mine. There it was, the antagonist wound. Not an excuse. Never that, but a shape inside the damage. Elliot had not hidden Lila because he did not believe Clara could love her. He hid Lila because he believed love had a fixed amount, and any new claim would make him vanish. Some people destroy what they love because they do not believe they deserve it. That is not something to forgive easily, but it is something to understand, and understanding can be its own kind of blade. Clara listened to the recording 3 times. Each time, Elliot became both smaller and more frightening. Not a monster, a wounded man who had made his wound into law. That night, Clara went to the apartment while Elliot was at work. She did not go alone. Amara Sloan came with her, carrying a leather folder and the calm of a woman who had made powerful people uncomfortable for 40 years. Elliot had changed the alarm code. Clara stood in the hallway and stared at the keypad. Amara looked at her. Is your name on the lease? Yes? Then call building management. The doorman, Javier, looked miserable when he came up with the override key. Mrs. Wren, he whispered. Mr. Wren said you might need space. From my home? Javier's face colored. I don't want trouble. No one ever does, Clara said. Inside, the apartment looked unchanged. That was the cruelty of beautiful rooms. They did not admit what happened inside them. Clara walked to Elliot's study. The Harbor Light folder was gone. The locked drawer was empty. But Clara had spent her life with damaged paper. She knew absence had texture. On the desk blotter, faint impressions remained from something written with pressure. She took a soft graphite pad from her bag and dusted lightly over the leather. Amara watched without speaking. Letters appeared. Not all. Enough. Celia. If Clara contacts Lila again, proceed with capacity concern. Frame around Roseword. Use may if necessary. Amara's mouth tightened. That's useful. Clara photographed it. Then she looked at the framed picture of Elliot as a boy beside his mother. The photograph had always made her sad. Now she noticed something behind it. A corner of blue paper tucked into the backing. Clara removed the frame from the shelf and opened it. Inside was an old letter, folded until the creases had nearly cut through. Elliot, I know you will hate me. Maybe you should. But I cannot stay and become your father's ghost. I was disappearing in that house. One day you may understand that leaving is not always the same as not loving. His mother's signature was a quick slash. Nadine. Clara held the letter carefully. There was a child's note written on the back in pencil. If I am good, she will come back. Clara closed her eyes. Amara said, You don't have to pity him. I know. But you do. Yes. That may make you kind. Amara said, Do not let it make you careless. Clara placed the letter back exactly as she found it. She would not steal his wound. He had stolen enough. When Elliot discovered she had entered the apartment, he called 17 times. Clara answered the 18th. Where are you? He asked. Safe? His breath caught. I never made you unsafe. Clara looked around the hotel room. The suitcase, the receipts, the rain-streaked window. You made safety conditional on obedience. A silence. Then his voice softened. Come home. The ache that moved through her was not weakness. It was grief. I don't know where that is anymore. Home is not a place, Clara. No, she said. It is the place where truth is allowed to enter. He exhaled. Celia says you hired counsel. Yes. I wish you hadn't done that. I wish you hadn't impersonated me. You keep using that word like I wanted to hurt you. What did you want? To keep our life. At whose cost? He did not answer. She imagined him in his office, standing by the window, tie loosened, one hand pressed to his forehead. She knew that posture. She had loved that posture. She had brought coffee to that posture. She had built 18 years around believing the man inside it was trying his best. Maybe he was. That was the terrible part. A person can try their best and still choose themselves at every moral intersection. Clara, he said quietly, if she had come into our life, what would I have been? The question was so naked that for a moment she could not speak. Then she said, My husband. His laugh broke. You think it would have been that simple? No, but it would have been true. There was a sound on his end, something between breath and pain. I was afraid, he said. I know. That has to matter. It does. Then why are you doing this? Clara looked at the folded receipt on the nightstand. Because your fear made a prison and put 3 women inside it. He hung up. The next day, the municipal records request was denied. No explanation. 2 hours later, Clara received an email from the archive director. Clara, I have received a concerning call from Elliot regarding your current emotional strain and your use of archive systems for personal matters. I would like to meet tomorrow morning. There it was. Systematic pressure. Elliot had moved from private management to institutional damage. For a moment, Clara almost folded, not because she thought she was wrong, because she was tired. Tiredness is the accomplice of many betrayals. It makes silence look like wisdom. It makes surrender look mature. She sat alone in the hotel room and held the lavender ribbon from rosewood. The fabric had faded to gray at the edges. When she brought it close, she imagined she could still smell soap. She was 18 again, a girl being told the baby was gone. A girl with no paper, no witness, no one willing to risk discomfort for her truth. Then her phone buzzed. Jonah. I found something weird. Rosewood House records were transferred twice, once to municipal storage, once to a private foundation. Clara typed, "Which foundation?" His answer came back. Families Forward, Elliot's foundation. For several seconds, Clara did not understand. Then she did. The betrayal was older than Lila's email, older than the forged letters, older than the medical leave draft. Elliot had access to Rosewood records through the foundation he publicly used to advocate for family healing. Whether he discovered Lila by accident or design, he had not simply stumbled into the truth. The truth had been stored under his own name. At the meeting with the archive director, Clara brought Amara. Director Wynne was a precise man who wore bow ties and believed every crisis could be improved by speaking more slowly. "Clara," he said, folding his hands, "this is a delicate situation." Amara smiled. Delicacy is often where misconduct goes to rest. Director Wynne blinked. Clara placed 3 documents on the table. The forged letters, the draft medical leave notice, the foundation transfer record. "I use no restricted archive material for personal purposes," she said. "I requested public chain of custody information on Rosewood House because records connected to my own identity appear to have been housed under a foundation run by my husband." Director Wynne looked at the documents. His face changed. Elliot did not mention this. I imagine not. The power shifted then, not dramatically, but enough. Director Wynne removed his glasses. "I will need time to review." "No," Amara said. "You will need to preserve all related access logs immediately." Clara watched the director absorb the difference between a distressed employee and a represented one. By evening, Families Forward had been notified of a records inquiry. By morning, Celia sent Clara a message. "You are making choices you cannot unmake." Clara stared at it. Then she forwarded it to Amara. That was the first time she chose strategy instead of reaction. Over the next week, the story narrowed and widened at once. Narrowed to documents, widened to consequences. Amara filed for preservation of all foundation records tied to Rosewood House. Jonah traced storage boxes through old catalog numbers. Bell from the post office, after one official request, confirmed Elliot had mailed multiple certified letters connected to Lila Orr. May called every day. Clara did not answer until the 5th. When she did, May was crying before Clara said hello. "I found something," May said. Clara closed her eyes. "What?" "Mom's cedar chest, in the attic. There are letters." Clara drove across the river in rain so heavy the traffic lights blurred into red wounds. May met her at the door holding a shoebox. Her face was swollen. She looked younger than Clara had seen her in years. "I didn't know," May said immediately. "Not this, I swear." Clara took the box into the kitchen. Inside were letters from Rosewood House to Margaret Ellery. "Your daughter delivered a female infant at 2:14 a.m. Infant transferred per signed guardian authorization. Birth mother sedated during post-delivery complications." Clara read without moving. May sat across from her and wept silently. At the bottom of the box was one more envelope, addressed to Clara. Never opened. In her mother's handwriting. Clara held it for a long time. Then she opened it. "My Clara, if you are reading this, then either I have become brave too late, or someone has forced the truth into daylight. The baby lived. I told myself I was saving you. You were young. The boy was gone. The town was cruel. I signed because I thought motherhood would bury you before you had a chance to become yourself. I know now that I was not saving you from pain. I was saving myself from shame. I do not ask forgiveness. I only ask that, if the truth finds you, you do not let anyone tell you silence was mercy. Your mother Clara read the letter twice, then she placed it on the table. May whispered, "I am so sorry." Clara looked at her sister. For years, Clara had made their mother softer in memory, not because Margaret deserved it, because hatred takes energy, and Clara had used hers to live. Now the woman she had protected in memory stood revealed as someone frightened, selfish, and human. It would have been easy to make Margaret the villain of the story, but the dead cannot answer. The living can. "Did Elliot know about this letter?" Clara asked. May wiped her face. "I don't think so." "Are you sure?" May hesitated. Clara's body went still. "What?" "After Mom died, Elliot helped sort the attic. I couldn't do it. He took some boxes to donate." "When?" 3 years ago." 3 years. Clara looked at the unopened envelope. If Elliot had found Rosewood records 3 years ago, the timeline changed again. He had known before Lila contacted him. He had known and waited, or watched, or hoped the truth would never develop a voice. The mid-video reframe came from a detail that had seemed ordinary for years. 3 years earlier, after Margaret's funeral, Elliot had insisted on paying for a new archive-grade storage cabinet for Clara's workroom. A gift, he said, for all the things worth preserving. Clara had cried when he said it. Now she remembered that he had also taken away 3 boxes from her mother's attic and returned with empty hands. A gift, a theft, both wearing the same face. When Clara told Lila about the letter, Lila did not cry. She sat very still in the library, both hands flat on the table. "So I wasn't unwanted," she said. Clara's throat closed. "No." Lila nodded once, then again. "I don't know what to do with that." "Neither do I." "My whole life." Lila stopped. She looked away. "My adoptive parents loved me. I need you to know that. They were good. They're gone now, but they were good. I'm glad. I still wondered." "I know." "No, you don't." Clara accepted that. Lila picked up Margaret's letter and read the line again. "I was saving myself from shame." At least she knew what she did, Lila said. Clara thought of Elliot. Maybe knowing is not the same as stopping. That afternoon, Clara made the painful sacrifice. She authorized Amara to use Margaret's letter. Not privately, officially. It meant making her mother's choice part of a legal record. It meant May's children might one day know. It meant the polished family story would crack open. It meant Clara would no longer protect the dead woman who had not protected her. May begged her not to. "Mom is gone," she said. What does exposing her change? Clara stood in May's kitchen, the same cinnamon smell in the air, the same family photographs lining the wall. It changes who has to carry the shame. May looked as if she had been slapped. "She was our mother." "Yes." "She loved you." "Yes." "Both can be true," Clara said. May sat down slowly. That was the cost. Not victory. Cost. Justice, when it finally begins, does not feel like triumph. It feels like setting down a beloved object and admitting it has been broken for years. The foundation hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in December. Not a courtroom, a boardroom. That made it worse somehow. Courtrooms admit conflict. Boardrooms pretend everything is procedural. The family's forward board gathered around a long glass table 30 stories above the city. Rain streaked the windows. Coffee steamed in white cups. Elliot sat at one end in a charcoal suit, Celia beside him. Clara sat across from them with Amara. Lila came too. She sat 3 chairs away from Clara, close enough that their sleeves almost touched. Elliot did not look at her. That hurt Clara more than she expected. A board chair named Russell Vane opened the meeting with phrases like concern, privacy, and reputational risk. Clara listened. Elliot spoke next. His voice was quiet, sad, impeccably controlled. I made mistakes, he said. I responded to a volatile person without full transparency because I feared for my wife's mental health. In retrospect, I should have sought professional guidance earlier. Lila's hand curled into a fist under the table. Clara felt it without looking. Elliot continued, Clara's history with Rosewood House is deeply traumatic. Those of us who love her have always understood that certain subjects can destabilize her sense of safety. Those of us who love her. There are sentences designed to hug you while they bury you. Amara made one note on her legal pad. Celia then presented the line they had prepared. At issue is whether Mr. Wren's actions, however imperfect, were undertaken in bad faith, or whether they were an emotionally flawed attempt to protect his spouse from a predatory identity claim. Predatory. Lila stood. The room froze. Amara touched her wrist lightly, not stopping her, only grounding her. Lila looked at Elliot. Say my name. Elliot's face tightened. This is not appropriate. You wrote to me for a year. You came to my building. You gave me money in envelopes. Say my name, Celia said. Ms. Orr. Lila did not look at her. Elliot. He stared at the table. Lila, he said. The name changed the room. Not enough, but something. Lila sat. Clara felt the past and present inside her move closer together. The girl at Rosewood, the wife in the glass apartment, the woman in the boardroom. For so long, each had carried pain separately. Now they were beginning to recognize each other. Amara then placed the documents on the screen. The forged emails, the certified mail receipts, the bank transfers, the draft medical leave letter, the foundation storage record, Margaret's letter. Elliot's expression did not collapse. It emptied. When Margaret's words appeared on the screen, Clara watched his face. There. A flicker. Recognition. Not surprise. He had known. Amara turned to him. Mr. Wren, when did you first become aware that Clara Wren's child had survived Rosewood House? Celia leaned toward him. Do not answer yet. But Elliot was looking at the screen, at Margaret's confession, at the line that undid him. I was not saving you from pain. I was saving myself from shame. He had read it before. Clara knew. He had read it and then become it. Russell Vane cleared his throat. Mr. Wren. Elliot's hands were clasped on the table. His wedding ring caught the light. I found references, he said. When? After Margaret Ellery died. 3 years ago. Silence. Yes. Lila turned her face away. Clara did not move. Amara's voice remained even. And you did not inform your wife? No. Why? Celia whispered. Elliot. He looked at Clara then. Really looked. Not at the role, not at the fragile woman he had invented. At her. Because I knew if I told her, he said, everything would change. The room was silent. Amara waited. Elliot's mouth trembled once. And I did not know if there would still be room for me. There it was, the moral mirror. Not the whole truth, but the first honest piece. Clara felt no satisfaction. That surprised her. She had imagined that hearing him admit it would feel like a door opening. Instead, it felt like standing in the rain with no umbrella, watching a house burn that had once been warm. Russell Vane looked shaken. Celia looked furious. Lila looked tired. Clara looked at Elliot and remembered the boy's pencil note on the back of his mother's letter. If I am good, she will come back. How small we are when our worst fear is touched. How dangerous we become when we let that smallness govern others. The board suspended Elliot pending review. Celia withdrew from representing him within the foundation by the end of the day. By evening, the story had not gone public, but Northbridge's private world knew enough. That was the second false ending, because suspension was not justice, not yet. Elliot still had his law license. His reputation could recover. Men like him often converted exposure into complexity. He could say he had been overwhelmed. He could say adoption trauma was difficult. He could say his wife was grieving and his choices were flawed but loving. He began doing exactly that. Calls came, messages. Mutual friends used words like heartbreaking and complicated. One woman from the foundation wrote to Clara, I hope someday you can see that Elliot was trying to spare everyone pain. Clara deleted it. Then came the final move. Not from Clara, from Elliot. He filed a private petition claiming Clara had unlawfully taken confidential foundation material and was emotionally unfit to manage matters connected to Rose Ward records. It was not likely to win, Amara said, but it would slow everything. It would force Clara into more hearings, more evaluations, more rooms where strangers discussed whether her grief made her unreliable. That was when Clara understood what justice would require. Not punishment, exposure. Not of the scandal, of the pattern. Elliot had spent years turning care into control because control felt safer than love. So Clara built a mirror he could not look away from. The Northbridge Civic Archive had a winter exhibit planned before any of this happened. Letters that survived the flood. Clara had curated it months earlier, long before Lila, before the coat, before the receipt. The exhibit was about water-damaged correspondence recovered from the Fenwick Hotel, but the theme was larger. What paper remembers after everything? Director Wynne offered to remove Clara from the opening. For privacy, he said. Clara almost smiled. No. Instead, she changed one display case. Legally. Carefully, with consent, Lila gave permission for one forged letter to be shown with identifying details redacted. Clara gave permission for Margaret's letter to be shown. Amara approved the language. The exhibit card did not name Elliot. It did not need to. It read in family histories. Silence is often described as protection. These two letters, written decades apart, show how protection can become possession when truth is withheld from the person most entitled to know it. The first letter was written by a mother who gave away her daughter's child and called it mercy. The second was written by a husband who impersonated his wife and called it care. Both reveal the same moral failure, the belief that love gives one person the right to decide what reality another person can survive. The opening was held on a Friday night. Snow, not rain, fell over Northbridge for the first time that winter. Inside the archive, the lights were warm. People moved slowly through the exhibit, bending toward glass cases, whispering over old ink. Clara wore a simple black dress. Lila stood beside her in navy. They were not touching. That mattered. Their closeness had to be chosen, not staged. At 7:30, Elliot arrived. Clara had not invited him. Of course he came. He stood near the entrance in a dark overcoat, thinner than she remembered, his face drawn with sleeplessness. People noticed him, then pretended not to. Celia was not with him. For once, Elliot entered a room without an interpreter. He saw Clara, then Lila, then the display case. The moment he understood what he was looking at, his body changed. Not dramatically, his shoulders simply lowered, as if some invisible structure inside him had failed. He walked to the glass. Clara did not follow. She watched him read. Margaret's letter first, then his. Or the letter he had written in Clara's name. Please stop contacting me. I have a life now. I am asking you to respect the family I chose. Around him, people continued moving. A curator laughed softly near the entrance. Glasses clinked. Snow tapped the high windows with tiny, dry sounds. Elliot placed one hand on the edge of the display case. For a second, Clara thought he might break it. Instead, he looked at Lila. "I told myself," he said. His voice was so quiet that only Clara and Lila heard. He stopped, started again. "I told myself I was saving her from pain." Lila's face was unreadable. "Were you?" Elliot looked at Clara. There was no lawyer in him then, no husband, no respected man, only a frightened person standing in front of the damage his fear had made. "No," he said. The word cost him something. Not enough, but something. "I was saving myself from becoming replaceable." Lila swallowed. Clara felt the old version of herself rise, the woman who would have taken that confession and wrapped it in comfort, the woman who had believed love did not need to be witnessed, the woman who had carried other people's shame so gracefully that they mistook her silence for consent. She let that woman stand there inside her. Then she let her rest. Elliot looked at Clara. "I loved you," he said. She believed him. That was the hardest part. "I know." His eyes filled. "That doesn't matter." "It matters," Clara said. "It just doesn't save you." He nodded as if she had struck him and forgiven him in the same breath. Lila looked at him for a long moment. "You made me beg a ghost," she said. Elliot closed his eyes. "I know." "No," Lila said. "You don't. But maybe someday you will." Then she walked away. Clara stayed, not for Elliot, for herself. He looked older under the archive lights. "I don't know who I am if I am not your husband," he said. Clara heard the child in it. She also heard the trap. "That is work you should have done before you made me your shelter." He nodded again. A tear slid down his face. He wiped it quickly, ashamed of being seen. Once, Clara would have reached for his hand. This time, she did not. That was the climax. Not the exhibit, not the documents, not the public whispering that followed Elliot out of the archive and into whatever remained of his life. The climax was Clara standing within arm's reach of a suffering man she loved and choosing not to rescue him from the consequences of what he had done. Kindness had been her language. Silence had been her cage. That night, she learned they were not the same thing. The aftermath did not become clean. It never does. Elliot resigned from Families Forward before the board could remove him. His law firm announced an internal review. Celia left for another city within 3 months. Though Clara heard, she called the matter a tragic ethical misunderstanding. May and Clara did not heal quickly. Some weeks, they spoke. Some weeks, they did not. When they did, they spoke more truth than comfort, which felt, at first, like losing sisterhood, and later like rebuilding it with better materials. Lila did not call Clara mother. Clara did not ask her to. They met every Sunday at the same cafe under Harbor Light Residences. At first, they exchanged facts, medical history, family names, photographs, stories about Margaret, stories about Lila's adoptive parents, who had loved her well and still left her with questions they could not answer. Then, slowly, facts became preferences. Lila hated olives. Clara hated lavender. Lila read the last page of books first. Clara considered that a moral defect. Lila laughed when Clara said so. The first time Lila laughed without bitterness. Clara went home and cried for 20 minutes in the shower, not because everything was fixed, because something living had grown in ground everyone told her was a grave. In March, Clara moved out of the glass apartment. She took little: books, clothes, her tools, the tin of receipts, the photograph from Rosewood, Margaret's letter. Elliot's mother's letter remained where it belonged, with him. The new apartment was smaller, on the 4th floor of an old brick building above a bakery. The floors creaked. The radiators hissed. The windows did not reach the ceiling, but they opened. On her first night there, Clara hung Elliot's black wool coat on the back of a chair. She had taken it by accident, or maybe not. It had been in the hall closet with her things, cleaned and empty, for weeks. She could not decide what to do with it. Burning it felt dramatic. Donating it felt dishonest. Keeping it felt like letting him stay. So she did what she knew how to do. She repaired it. One sleeve lining had torn. She stitched it by hand with black thread under a yellow lamp while snow melted into dirty streams along the street below. The garment steamer hissed beside her. Hot wool, rain beginning again. The same smell as the night everything started. Only now, Clara did not feel the floor disappear beneath her. She checked every pocket. Not because she was afraid, because care, when freely chosen, was still care. In the left pocket, she found nothing. She smiled then, a small smile, a tired one, hers. The next Sunday, she gave the coat to a winter shelter, with a note pinned inside. May this keep someone warm, without asking anything in return. Then she walked to meet Lila. The rain was light, almost gentle. At the cafe, Lila was already there, reading a paperback backward from the last chapter like a criminal. Clara sat across from her. Lila looked up. "You okay?" Clara considered the question. For most of her life, okay had meant quiet, agreeable, untroubled enough for others to relax. Now it meant something less beautiful and more honest. "I am here," Clara said. Lila nodded. Outside, rain touched the windows. Inside, coffee steamed between them. And for once, nothing hidden moved beneath the silence. This has been a work of fiction created for entertainment purposes. Names, characters, businesses, places, and incidents are products of imagination.